Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Gabe Estel. Welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo. We are on episode number 11 tonight. Thanks for hanging in there with us. I am here with my wonderful co-hosts, Jonathan Getz and Dennis Levi Leach. Good evening, boys. How's it going?
Doing
Pretty
good.
good.
Good. Well, it's good to see everybody. We had just recorded a Shin-Soo Choo B-side that really revolved around U2, kind of, jokingly, sort of the merits of their music. But the reason that U2's in the news right now is really going to provide the starting point for tonight's show as well. U2 released an album through iTunes, but it was free. You didn't have to download it like you would other albums on iTunes. Everybody that had iTunes got this album. And to some people, that was great because they liked U2 and they got an album for free, album that maybe they would have bought or streamed or listened to anyway. For other people, it was annoying because they didn't like U2's music, and yours truly included. And then there's kind of maybe a third area, a third group of people who are annoyed by the corporatism of U2 striking up a deal with Apple. So we're going to talk a little bit about we're going to talk about the people that fall into the third group there, and how corporations are starting to infiltrate rock and roll in different ways than they used to, and particularly in an era of very just rapidly declining record sales. So we're going to talk about that. With U2. Just to give everybody a little bit of the details, they received just a boatload of money to release this album through Apple, more money than they would have ever received if the album just would have been released traditionally. You buy it in a store, or you buy it on iTunes, or you stream it. They forewent all those things and took it right to Apple, and so. Apple and U2 have had this partnership now for a number of years. When the iPod, one of the early editions of the iPod, I don't remember which one, but it's been about 10 years ago or so, U2 was on the commercials for that. So they're kind of becoming, I think I heard somebody say in an article, Apple's house band was the way that they put it. And I thought that was smartly put.
Yeah.
But to a lot of people, this really irked them because they felt like, rock and roll is becoming more in bed with corporate America. When rock and roll, if you look at its roots, was always about rebelling and sort of kind of being anti-establishment just by its nature. That's changing now, and a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that kids aren't rushing to the local record store or even the local Best Buy to buy an album. They're not even rushing really to the local iTunes that much anymore either. So obviously people have to come up with new ways. So I want to ask all of you guys, what did you think about what U2 did, minus their music? We're not talking about that. But just the approach that they took. Do you see more bands doing it? And also, does it irk you? Do you have a problem with it? Levi, I'll start with you. What about you? What did you think of all this?
I think it was a smart marketing thing on their end. I don't think they should have made it like and this probably wasn't controlled by U2. It was controlled by Apple, but Apple made it a forced download or a forced purchase for everyone. And so I think that's where a lot of the ire came from. And so I don't know if other bands will do this in the future. I think you have to be a bigger band like U2 to somehow pull this off. The only person I could see that could do it right now besides them is like maybe Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Or
maybe even if you went the other route like Garth Brooks, or somebody like that. Somebody who's a really huge stature.
But I think Apple, even if the Rolling Stones offered it, they'd be like, yeah, you're you're the Rolling Stones, but you're just a little too over the hill for this. It's not a right match.
U2's old. Yeah. The Rolling Stones are ancient.
Exactly.
So,
seriously, they know this because U2's the same age, I'm assuming, near as Tim Cook and Apple and however old Steve Jobs would have been. And yeah.
Apple will tell the Rolling Stones, "Hey, I think we can give you Netscape's phone number."
Corporate burn.
Yeah, right.
But no, Levi, I totally agree that the Rolling Stones could have been considered, are probably the second biggest band in the world, but there's too wide of a gap there for Apple's comfort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How else? Another thing, all of us touched on. It's hard to create buzz for a new record now. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It used to be the template was really kind of unchanged for decades. You dropped little press releases out there. You sent it to Rolling Stone and Spin and all those magazines, and they kind of talked it up. Mm-hmm. And then you had advertisements in magazines and newspapers for the album with the release date, big storefront displays. All that shit's over. Really.
And I touched on it in the B-side. What I think this did more than anything for U2 is generate relevancy in a consumer group that did not know them, and that would be obviously like the 18 to 24 market. And
yeah, it forces them to look at it.
It's in
their iTunes. Yeah,
absolutely. And it just goes to show like what some companies are trying to do and willing to do to do that. There was just another commercial, and I'm trying to think who it was for. It might have been T-Mobile or somebody, but it was just on the other night, and it had Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live from the 80s on it. And
Kevin Nealon and Dana Carvey.
Yeah, and I chuckle because I'm like, oh, I get it. But then I look at my wife in bed, and I'm like, there's a whole generation of young kids who were like, who the F were those guys?
It's an insurance. It's State Farm insurance. So I don't think they care about the 18-year-olds.
No, but it was just I was blown away by what some companies are like trying to do to sell stuff, and that obviously is the other end of the spectrum. They're not creating relevancy with the young market because people
take the nostalgia factor, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of these corporate entities are really, and I mean, you can argue, rock and roll for many years prior to even the sort of digital revolution of how we consume the music and purchase it. It's been a business. I mean, all of the artists that we, not all of them, but, many of the artists that we look up to, they had to, they made a lot of money, I mean, Pearl Jam's not poor, I mean, those guys aren't poor. They moved a lot of albums. I guess when it comes down to it, you sort of, some people like, well, there's a right way to do it, and the way maybe the way Pearl Jam does, I don't know, and then there's the ugly corporate way to do it, which is the way that U2 does it. Yeah,
I think there are several dozen shades of gray in there.
Yeah,
and just because you've sold your song for a commercial. Doesn't mean you're a sellout necessarily. No. I think that there is in the world of the perception that there is a fine line there where it does matter what the product is. I think what Apple and Volkswagen did early on, now about a decade ago, was they changed the commercial from this sort of OxyClean approach to something that has a bit more substance to it and is a bit more artistic.
More artistic merit. Yeah, right.
And so something that bands would be willing to associate their music with. And that's and I think it's interesting now that Apple's come from establishing this new relationship that it's okay for bands to get involved, to now it's like, okay, wait, maybe you've gone too far where these bands are performing at your product release events.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can do it and make the commercial and the music combine into a great artistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they've done that at all with the U2 stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I think it's almost gotten to the point where it's hard to discern them. Where I think maybe some kids do think that they're Apple's house band in a way.
Oh yeah, they're just
right,
a brand.
right.
Yeah, U2 is a brand.
Yeah, you'll play them for a younger audience to be like, oh yeah, that's that band that's on the Apple.
It's the Apple band.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Jonathan, you had asked me when we were planning this episode, and this piggybacks on your point about the whole notion of selling out now. I think has really changed than when all of us were really, buying records when we were teenagers. It's even changed than maybe it was 10 years ago. These with the whole notion of selling out, that it's changed so much that I think that bands that like maybe would have shunned those things a few years ago, like your song appearing in a video game or your song appearing in a commercial. It almost now, like the bands that we grew up with, they were fortunate that they didn't have to do that.
You're right. Yeah.
Like Pearl Jam or Neil Young or whoever, and I'm not saying they're doing this. They could wag their finger all they want at a younger band for doing this, but like, those bands grew up with those bands had the luxury of still being able to sell really a lot of records.
Right. Yep.
Early
on.
Yeah, and have their songs on the radio, and have their songs on, their videos on MTV and all of that.
Yeah.
So just it's changed so much for younger bands. Just if you see a window, you got to jump in it. You know,
it's a huge pond. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just saw 3 bands last night. I saw 3 great bands last night. I'll mention them now, and everybody who listens to this show should go check out their stuff because all 3 of them are really good. There was a band called Cayucas, and there was a band called Unknown Mortal Orchestra, and there was a band called Tao and the Get Down, Stay Down. And, all these bands last night were playing to, a few thousand people at this block party that I went to. It was sponsored by Goose Island, so which a lot of people will be like, oh, Goose Island's good beer, so that's okay.
Right?
If it was the Bud Light block party, it might not be as cool. Right.
If it was 1986, it would be the coolest spot in town.
Yeah. Right.
Didn't Van Halen do like a Budweiser commercial? Wasn't like Beautiful Girls in a Budweiser commercial back then or something?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But I saw these 3 bands, and it's like, man, I was thinking as I was watching them, it's like, a lot of people aren't really going to hear these bands, and they should. A lot of people are never. These bands deserve to have the success that other bands I used to listen to had, and that's just probably not going to happen.
That's the biggest shame of music nowadays, man.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think that bands expect it either, and not that makes it right, but maybe it is in a way a market correction. To touch upon what we discussed with Gene Simmons in a previous episode, the idea of selling out these huge arenas and making millions upon millions of dollars, just it was maybe a recipe for disaster to begin with, and as a result, the law of averages is playing out now, much to the chagrin of some bands that are struggling to get by.
Oh
yeah. Jonathan, you asked me what would it take for me to, like, in this day and age, and I'm paraphrasing you a bit here, but what would it take for me to say, like, a band sold out now? Mm-hmm. Like, what would it take for me to dislike a band? Like, something so corporate they could do. Because, like, some of my favorite bands' songs have been in commercials recently, or in recent years. I would say if it was the corporation was writing the song for them, like if it was like corporate jingles, then I would probably turn my back on that band.
Now, even if they tweak the lyrics to a previous hit, that's wrong, right?
I don't know. Anybody but Kiss. Anybody, because like Kiss has already sinned.
Come on down to Panera and try the new bacon carrot biscuits, cause we're baking carrot biscuits every day. Bacon carrot biscuits. Yeah, man. It could get really, really bad if that stuff happened.
That would probably bother me. If it was like, I don't know, Bachman Turner Overdrive doing it, it wouldn't bother me as much as if, like, say, Wilco did it.
Hold
right?
on. So Eddie Money was in a commercial, wasn't he, recently? Singing.
Yeah. Geico.
So
Geico,
awful. Oh my God, it's painful to watch that.
Yeah.
But because he's in it, it kind of alleviates some of the judgment, doesn't it? Like, he's poking fun at himself.
He's in on the joke. Yeah.
So there's a way to do it.
And doing that commercial is probably more than Eddie Money's made for like any gig he's played.
Probably
10, 15 years, I'm sure. Yeah.
And so, and doesn't it? It also helps if the song doesn't really have anything to do with the product. Like, they aren't trying to make it a conversation between the song and the pitch.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think there was Mike McCready of Pearl Jam's referenced early on that they were offered money for Alive, I think, by some I think as he put it, some pharmaceutical companies. I'm assuming Viagra. You can
see Alive being in a commercial.
Viagra, I'm assuming.
Redemptive qualities.
Yeah.
Right.
So if Alive were in a Viagra commercial versus like antidepressive commercial, I think that's two different conversations.
Right.
And I would be annoyed by the Viagra commercial. I would the antidepressive commercial seems like it would be more of a kind of a public service announcement in a way, and I'd be kind of okay with that for some reason.
Yeah, we're picking our poison now at this point.
Yeah, but and that's how we do it, because it does come down to this artistic merit. Does the song contribute to the artistic vision that all of a sudden is encapsulated by this 30-second commercial? Because it's like it's a completely different mindset all of a sudden.
And sometimes they can pull it off. I mean, I think of Levi and I were talking about this, texting the Nick Drake being used by Volkswagen.
It was Volkswagen, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this. It's a strong adjective. This is a gorgeous commercial.
It is, yeah.
It's really totally well done.
It sets a vibe and it sets a mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you talk about introducing a whole new generation or two to... I mean, it introduced every generation to Nick Drake because he was ignored when he was alive. So, I assume he's Exhibit A when it comes to what the good things an artist... the good ways an artist can benefit from a commercial. Unfortunately, he wasn't around to see it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think they sometimes do it right with unknown bands or bands that are just coming up.
Yeah.
But when it's like bands you've heard before, like U2 and stuff, it kind of just you get an automatic groan kind of a feeling about it. You're like,
or the Who, because the Who for a while was in every commercial just about.
The Who made some Cadillac money.
Oh yeah,
and while Pearl Jam's never been in one, Pearl Jam has made deals where they've had albums that were initially only sold through Target. They were the only retail chain you could get. You could get them through an independent store, but as far as chains went, it was only through Target, so they had exclusive distribution through there.
Or they offered like bonus tracks on the Target edition or something like that, right?
No. Okay. But you can get those albums for like $5 a piece at Target now because they have a lot.
Right.
But so it's interesting. There are, it's not complete sweetheart corporate deals, but like sub corporate deals where they stick it to Best Buy, but not necessarily to all of the independent record stores.
Right. I remember Chinese Democracy when it came out. Now, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Was exclusively through Best Buy and I think iTunes. You can get it on iTunes as well, but that's it. So that kind of sucks because independent record stores have suffered so much over the last 15 years, and now it's like certain albums they can't even get them. Right. You can't even, not only like are you going to have a hard time selling the ones that you have in stock of other albums, you can't even obtain some bands' albums, so that's tough.
Best Buy started that. They were doing that in the 90s. There was lots of exclusive CDs, exclusive bonus CDs you would get.
Right. Yeah.
Or if you bought a CD at Best Buy the day it came out, you get a T-shirt sealed to it. So they were the kings of doing that, and it put a lot of independent stores out of business. But it's good to see now that Best Buy hardly sells any music, and at least there's still record stores open.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a niche market now, I mean, certainly, but yeah, the people who want the physical whatever it is, album or vinyl, CD. Yeah, that's becoming a niche market now. It really is.
There was a Dockers commercial about 10 years ago that played a song called California Soul on it, and it really caught me. It was the first commercial to really catch me, and it's by Marlena Shaw. And this album was released in the 60s, I believe. July 69. And otherwise, I never would have heard it. And it was a Dockers commercial set in San Francisco, granted. And but I haven't bought any Dockers since, but I did buy the album.
Those are nice pants, man.
Yeah, well, it can be well done. Go ahead, Levi. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, to like kind of get us going towards the next topic of it, maybe like what would, if you had a band and you had a song that maybe you held dear to you, what would your price be? Granted, you in this situation, you would not be able to control what corporation used it, because I think in my case it would be like, I think I'm okay with everything except if like it's in a McDonald's. I think McDonald's is probably like my I could probably give any of my songs to any company besides
I own an album by a band who had a song in a McDonald's commercial. Phoenix had a song in a McDonald's commercial. And it happens, and I agree that is one that you would probably kind of cringe at even today when I'm pretty used to it.
So like, do you guys have a price? What would your
or what's the line to cross?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, no, like, what would you like if a corporation's like, oh, 20 grand, would you be like, 500,000?
Oh,
like,
for my own?
Yeah. If you're selling a song to a corporation or you're going to play a corporate gig, what are you going to charge?
Sure. I mean, I think if I'm a songwriter on the side and I'm doing what I currently do in real life, I mean, 4 figures would probably have my ear. I don't even need 5 figures.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I would probably change it in some way.
And a couple tickets to Six Flags. Okay.
and I do say this as somebody who has songs that I've written. I've written several dozens of songs, but I would be willing to let one of those go in exchange.
3 McRib combos, supersized. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I think they banned the McRib in Kansas City. They don't need that here.
I would think that, it wouldn't take much for me. I got to be honest. Yeah, I would. I would.
And so, like, why would anybody hold their favorite musicians to a higher standard for some reason, thinking that they don't need the money? So, I mean, and maybe it's not even it's a null point because people don't really think about that anymore. But I think there is a slight stigma attached to it, or like even the idea, going back to the classic idea of, oh, I like this band better before they were big, or I like this band before they were on a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, if I am a large recording artist and GE comes up to me and says, hey, I want you to play our national winter conference and we're going to give you 6 figures, I'd be like, sign me the F up. I love some GE shit.
Yeah, right.
Like, I got GE shit in all my house.
Want me to wear the hat? What do you want? Yeah, right.
Yeah, dude. So, which is interesting and kind of goes along with, I found a website, and I'll post a link on our Facebook, of a list, and it's what artists charge to play. And so if you theoretically had this, and I wondered if maybe they give like a little bit of a extra 30% if they're playing a corporate gig, they might bump up this fee a little bit. But this list is huge. I thought it was just a couple hundred, and it's actually like 1,000 bands, ranging from like bands that charge $10,000 up until $1 million.
So I could call these bands, and even though I don't have a proper venue, they would come play for this amount of money.
Yes, if you had the cash, these bands are showing up.
Well, it's always like, they're always playing it's always like Jimmy Buffett and whoever,
and
playing like the King of Jordan's, birthday party or some shit.
And this list I will post on the Facebook, and you guys can both take a look. It's extensive, so I'm only going to go over a few of the highlights. But I thought it was neat. 311 will come play your party for $100,000. Just yeah. Kings of Leon charging $500,000. It says.
Jesus.
Bob Dylan is charging $300,000. It says to play. Bonnie Raitt $100,000.
Is anybody under six figures?
Oh yeah. Here I'm only gonna go down. I started at the highest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get down to the bottom barrel where we might be able to scrap some pennies together and get some people to play.
Guess fucking Jim Blossoms, if you're listening.
One of our show favorites, Pearl Jam, it says charges $500,000.
Yeah, yeah, that's about what I would guess.
That pie's got to be split a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
people...
out of that money they have to pay the drivers, they have to pay their road crew, they have to pay the production. So yes, this they would probably see like 70% of this total, maybe 60%.
Dude, I could have got Driving and Crying on a Kickstarter for like $5,000, I think, earlier this year.
Yeah. Stone Temple Pilots $250,000.
Hold on, does that include Scott or not?
Yes. Well, this was
I don't think they're together anymore.
No, they're not. But that was with Scott.
Wait, if I booked Scott separate from Stone Temple and they showed up at the same time, would they play?
Do that. Do that.
They'd be like, give us our fucking money now.
Do a forced reunion. Like, don't inform both parties. just be like, hey guys, I thought it would be cool. You know?
Oh, you didn't know each other?
Oh man, I think they would tough it out. Like if you just kept like upping it, you know.
Oh, if you double down, if you say, okay, here's what you asked for, now here's another.
Yeah.
You're like, all right,
they'd be okay.
All right, another $100,000 if you play Vaseline. All right.
It says Snoop Dogg / Lion because I guess he's called himself Snoop Lion.
Yeah.
It says he's only charging $70,000 to play. And
you got to get him high.
Well, of course.
They'll take that in blunts. All right. So.
Yeah, Nora Jones is making a cool $50,000.
That's all?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Seems low for her.
Yeah. She's really underselling herself here.
It says Cold War Kids are $50,000.
Yeah, she's got a bit more cred than Cold War Kids. I mean, music preferences aside.
It says you can have Foreigner for $40,000, the Black Crows for $40,000.
Huh. No shit. I thought they were more than that.
Blues Traveler $30,000. Cheap Trick $40,000.
I don't really. I have a problem though. I did hear that Eddie Vedder did just play some Salesforce thing in Hawaii, some like employee thing, and it's awkward at best, in my opinion. At worst, it's a paycheck. So I think it. I think that the bands though are obliged to do some research into who they're playing for.
Right.
I know that when there's been controversy in the past with what Beyonce or whoever playing in the Middle East for some unsavory folks, that there were some excuses like, hey, how are they supposed to know? And it's like, well, they should know. You know, if you're going to get paid that much, I'm sorry, if you're getting that much money coming to you, you should probably check it out a little bit.
Yeah, like this guy's responsible for, public beheadings and stuff.
You are obligated to do some research into who you're playing for, and that's not to say that not everybody's going to have a skeleton in the closet, but there's different levels of skeletons.
You could also say that like these gigs are to offset the amount of records that just people aren't selling anymore. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I equate it like this. Like the Black Crowes, one of our favorite bands, they've played a good number of these over the years, and I think a lot of it's probably been used so they could self-finance their albums, the recording of their albums.
Yep.
Because they're on their own record label now, so it's not like Columbia or Warner Brothers or whoever is like cutting some big check and just says, hey, here's a blank check, go record a record. It doesn't work that way anymore. Like they've you pretty much got to self-finance this on your own. So if you gotta play to a room full of Home Depot execs every once in a while just to get your album made, you know, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's the Steve Buscemi, the actor, a long time ago said that that he'll do the big box office hit so that he can finance all of the independent roles he wants to do, and you can't fault him for that.
Yeah, it's like an actor doing a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Yeah. So then he or she can go do something they're passionate about, you know, an independent movie or something they wrote, or you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and to anybody bitching, it's like, well, if you want to see me act, then just don't go to this movie and don't bitch about me being in this movie, so that then you can see me in these other movies.
I mean, also, you know, quick survey: have you guys ever gone to a job just so you could get paid? You know, I mean, it wasn't like just because you loved it. You know, I mean, sometimes like you do it, and that's what you do. And I mean, we're quick to say that people sell out. Yeah. But we're also quick to forget that this is how they earn a living too.
Right. You know, and I think it is because that there is this level of artistry involved. But, you know, I think, and it's an argument that goes way back, probably centuries, the balancing of artistry and being able to make a living.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, before I put the list down here, I'm going to touch on some of the cheapies, guys. We could, who could possibly?
These are people within our grasp.
Maybe, like, who are we getting for the Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo 100th episode party?
Okay, let me pull it up here. Ben Queller, it says, is $10,000.
He's all right.
Good.
Yeah. Candlebox, $15,000. Chuck Leavell, $15,000.
Okay.
I'll pay Chuck Leavell $15,000 just to like hang out.
Yeah, right. No kidding. It's like, all right, dude, 3 hours, $5,000 an hour. Are you in?
It says Crackers $10,000.
Yeah.
Disco Biscuits are $10,000. Everlast is $20,000.
Jesus.
Filter is $10,000. The Indigo Girls are $20,000. Says we could get Pat Travers for $15,000.
Man,
I think I'm throwing down on Cracker for 10. I think I can.
John McLaughlin, it says, for 15.
Oh, from Weather Report, or from? I mean, right.
Jefferson Starship for 15. Rusted Root for 12K. Shooter Jennings for 15. Oh, who else? Uncle Cracker is making a cool $20,000 every show, it says.
That seems pretty audacious for Uncle Cracker.
So do you think you get to write any of the set lists?
See, I think maybe if you got some of, I'm going to go into the ultimate low tier, but these are going to be some bands a lot of people won't know, but it says we could have. Does anybody remember King's X?
Yeah.
Says for $5,000.
Important band, dude.
$5,000 for $5,000. King's X will play.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I assume that doesn't include like airfare, right? I mean, I assume you have to probably play travel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Says the Nappy Roots will play for $5,000.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Confederate Railroad is $5,000. Bo Bice is $5,000.
Ugh.
Says anyway. The Dirty Dozen is only $5,000. It says.
Wow, you get the full dozen.
right.
No, you only get a 6-pack.
I just need 8.
I can only fit 8.
So there's quite a range there.
I mean, when
price and quality.
When you see those numbers, it kind of puts it into perspective what the industry is, because otherwise it seems like these tours just in a way just magically come together, and it's part of an album and touring in support of the album, and you don't really you're paying money to go, but you don't think about what that band, like how that band wouldn't show up if they didn't get paid.
Right.
And it puts the reality, it stresses the reality of the situation and the industry.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good points all around. Yeah. Well, good stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Any kind of closing thoughts on it? We're at about the 40-minute mark now.
Yeah, I've got one theoretical question. Would you be willing for your favorite bands to distribute their albums for free if it meant that they left their albums to be completely licensed by any corporation that wanted to? No holds barred. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Where they would just put it out there. It would essentially be, in a way, kind of Creative Commons, where anybody could use it, public domain, I guess, to sell anything they wanted. But as a result, you get it for free.
Man, at this point, I'm barely paying anything because I use RDO. So,
Right.
God, I feel like even though it's legitimate, I'm ripping them off as it is.
Well, no, and I think we are of the people that are going to be of the last generation that thinks that way.
Yeah.
Because there is going to be people who are like, oh, I've always got music for free. Why would I pay for music?
Right.
To them, music is just concerts. You know what I mean?
If
or
that.
If they pay for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the only time they associate paying for music is to go to a concert.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Otherwise, music is 4 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah. Like the concert's like the last way you can't steal it or stream it for free.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right. And and I guess, I mean, I'm of the mindset where I don't even necessarily want to be on the guest list of bands that I really like that aren't big, because I want them to have my money in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll buy the new CD as opposed to the used one because they won't see any of that used money, but they'll get the new money.
Right.
And so, call me a fool, but I wanted to see these bands do well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know how I'd answer my own question, but I'm wondering if it's going to go in that direction where, okay, we give up, all the music's free, but as a result, Home Depot might use it next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to say that, I would be okay with that. I mean, if it meant that the bands could get paid in other ways, sure.
Yeah, because that's obviously the key, is to make it to where the bands can make enough money to survive and be successful and to keep creating.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Because, I mean, for some bands that are probably really good, that have put out a couple albums, they've got to be wondering, like, shit, is the next one even worth it? Like, I mean...
Yeah. I mean, you do wonder with bands that, only put out a couple albums why they stopped, or why they slowed down, for that matter.
Yeah.
After a while, you think it just comes down to economics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to. In this day and age, absolutely. You'll, I think you'll see more corporate partnerships. Some of the ways it'll be subtle, in other ways it'll be really overt. And also, I mean, the ticket prices as well. That's the tough thing for me, because ticket prices have escalated so much. I mean, if to see like any national touring band for like under $40 is rare.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, there are some younger bands that I like that still have kept their ticket prices pretty reasonable, but I'm sure as they get bigger, they're going to go up. I mean, I look at a band like My Morning Jacket. I mean, to see My Morning Jacket now is $50,
mm-hmm.
if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think they had a lot to do with that. I mean, they don't set the ticket prices. Somebody else determines all that. So that's been tough for me, because I've always supported live music and I want people to go to the shows, but yeah, tickets are just getting really expensive, and it's probably just to offset or to compensate for the amount of money they've lost in record sales. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you might start to see more package tours. You might, where you see 4 or 5 bands on a bill. But that's tough, because it's like, how expensive can the tickets get?
Yeah, and I think we have seen some effects where some bands are just playing more localized shows.
Right.
They aren't venturing out as far. Obviously, transportation costs factor quite a bit into that. Keeping it tight and tidy, and playing probably smaller venues in some instances, and foregoing the dream of the national arena tour, which can be, I assume, in some ways a crapshoot to be able to make a lot of money on.
Yeah, absolutely. You see a lot of smaller shows now, which I kind of like, because I think that a lot of those amphitheaters that were built in the 80s, your places like Riverport or whatever the hell it's called now, the place by Tinley Park, whatever it's called now, if the industry had to do it all over again, I don't think they would build those places. Those places are too big. Like those places are almost, except for a handful of artists, they're really too big for a lot of today's artists.
Yeah, they're very specialized venues for like the big radio summer, FM summer bash.
Absolutely,
shows.
Or like a new country artist who's huge, maybe something like that.
Right.
Yeah, those venues just really, I don't really like those venues for one. They're usually like in the suburbs. They're not really close to the city, so you can't really like park, walk around, grab something to eat or go to a bar or something. Right. It's just giant. It's like amphitheater, giant parking lot.
Yeah,
that's
it's like going to a football game.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, and I think, and it, to me, and this is just purely, I don't have any numbers to back this up. This is just purely going off of observation here. It seems like those places are booking fewer shows. Do you guys notice that? Does it seem like Riverport's concert itinerary for the summer is much slimmer than it used to be?
Yeah. I haven't had a reason to go out to Sandstone probably for 10 years. Not since like Tom Petty and the Black Crowes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do like Chicago has a venue that opened about 10 years ago now called Northerly Island, which I like because it's downtown. You got the city skyline, and they opened up a lawn this year, so it can accommodate more people. But they usually they don't even open the lawn. It's just kind of probably holds about 7,000 if they don't open up the lawn, which I like. I mean, I would. That's still comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas those places like Riverport and Tinley Park and Sandstone and all of those kind of big suburban sheds, I mean, those places, like, you're looking at 20 to 30,000 at a lot of those places, which there just aren't many artists that can fill that. And it would just be better if these bands, I'd rather see them like, I don't know, would it make more sense to do like multiple nights at smaller venues? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you see that with like Madison Square Garden, where in lieu of playing the Meadowlands, they're going to play 3 nights at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
To parallel what the theater you're talking about, we have the Starlight Theater here in Kansas City, which is a smaller amphitheater, and Arcade Fire's been there a few times. The National, Crosby, Stills and Nash, My Morning Jacket, and it's a great compromise between the kind of the outdoor atmosphere and a bit more intimate size. I mean, it's still going to be several thousand people, but it's much more manageable, and the sound's a lot more manageable as well, I imagine. So yeah, I mean, I've been there a dozen times over the last 4 or 5 or 6 years.
Right. Good stuff, guys.
Well, yeah.
We are just gonna, for our audience, we are just we stuck to music tonight. The business of baseball might even be a little bit larger than this conversation tonight. So we're gonna table that one, and talk about that at during a later show. So on that note, good conversation all around, guys. I learned a few things. So
definitely.
So yeah, good stuff. And,
thanks to everybody watching at home, and I still believe have a couple sets of Diamond Kings to give away.
We do. Absolutely.
Message us on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Or Twitter. Yeah, you can go to @RockinShoe is the Twitter handle, or go to our Facebook page. Post pictures of your cards. You know what? Post like concert memories or something as well. You know, that would.
Yeah.
You know, we could throw that out there
Ticket
as well.
Stubs?
Ticket stubs. I need to take some photos of mine. I'll probably be embarrassed at all the 1998 string cheese incident tickets I have, but that's all right. I apologize for nothing. So anyway, on that note, check us out on Twitter, check us out on Facebook, post your cards, and we'll give away some Diamond Kings. So should be fun. Until next time.
Yeah, have a good
keep
one.
Up the good work, boys, and have a good night.